Hello everyone. Welcome to round 3 of the Boogey Percent Tourney Earthbound Super Series. I'm your host tonight, MBG. Just saw Peen Train finish a run, just saw Lontr0 finish a run. Getting some good times tonight. Drop something. Hoping to see some amazing Boogey times coming up. Good luck to StaticPulse and Lontr0. Third strongest nom in the glitchless run, you just gotta hope that nobody ties you. Get right into it. Well, obviously, if you've been here before, not really much to say about the beginning of the run. The first, give or take 7 minutes or so is pretty much the same. We're gonna lead into the Starman Junior fight around 6 to 7 minutes usually. That's whenever you're gonna see a bit of time difference, presumably. You just finished your 1 in 128 challenge. That's rough. I personally attempted to do one. I got about halfway through and then I gave up. It was just too much grinding for me. But I definitely commend you for completing that. That's very impressive. So we're coming up on the hill climb. You can usually see some shenanigans going down. It's not the most difficult of sections, but there are a few parts that can pose a challenge. There is a 100% spawn rate tile leading up to the hill, and if you can't get something optimal while leading up there, you can lose a lot of time. Let's see what happens. Ideally, you'd like to see a crow get stuck on a tree, or a dog that despawns itself. Get a crow stuck on a tree on Lontr0 size, it's leaving. StaticPulse getting an instant snake. It's a very unfortunate spawn plate as well. Getting the crow stuck on the tree and past the 100% spawn rate tile. Static getting some very unfortunate spawns here. Stuck in a bit of a pincer. He opts to take the dog on the 100% tile, which I would probably do as well. Seems to be the smarter option to just get you past that point. Especially in a pincer scenario. It's also going to give him a level up if he didn't get the one from the snake already. That level up's going to help with fighting the sharks later. Running into another crow here. Sometimes the hill climb can be really rough. Sometimes there's a lot of enemies, sometimes there's not really too much going on, and StaticPulse is really getting the shorter end of the draw here. It's just a lot of enemies, very dense section. Taking an early death, which is just equally as unfortunate. Opts to skip healing at his mom. You don't really need the PP here if you can avoid all the enemies, but Lontr0 leading into Starman Jr. fight. StaticPulse getting a cheeky drag on that dog so he can get around it. It's always a nice trick. And a really good stutter past that snake. That was very close. Very, very good stutter. Lontr0 taking down Starman Jr. I think that might have just been a really slow 3 cycle. I was very caught up. There was a lot going on both screens. StaticPulse opting to take the bread roll along. Which will also help in the future against the Sharks. Heading into Starman Jr. Big smash. It's a very helpful smash with a 95 roll. Could potentially be the difference in getting a 2-cycle on the Starman. And it was. That's gonna help a lot. Lontr0 doing his shopping. Getting a baseball bat, cheap bracelet, and a baseball cap. Head out to go take on some Sharks. Very good turn cycle on this first Shark. Those misses really do help a lot. Any PP that you can save on healing, and saving your bread roll as well, if you have it. Very unfortunate turns going on in this pogo fight. Lots of misses, very high damage rolls. It can get scary. We end up making it through. Use the bread roll. StaticPulse making his way into Anna. Lontr0 life up and then heading into Frank fight. Ideally, you'd like to have Frank say nasty things about you. You don't want him swinging at you, you don't want him stabbing you. It can make the fight very scary, and almost any damage that you take, you want to instantly heal. It can be very scary to risk taking too much damage in this fight because Frank can take you out in one hit if he wants to. Getting very unfortunate misses. End up taking down Frank, but that fight could have gone a lot worse. That was a very, very unfortunate Frank fight, taking a lot of damage, eating into our burger supply very hard. Gonna have to really bite the bullet on this Frankenstein Mark II. Hopefully we can make it through. Have just enough damage to make it through the fight. StaticPulse avoiding the spawn plate and heading into his shark fights. And that bonus offense is proving quite useful already. Eats the bread roll before the second shark. Big smash for 42. Probably gonna have to take another heal before this third shark. Decides to risk it. Decides to heal mid-fight. The shark ended up missing. Either way, he would have attacked. He could have done something. It would have been risky. Getting a lot of attacks coming out from Frank right now. This is a very scary Frank fight. Ends up making it out. Although he did bite into most of his burger supply. In fact, I believe he used all of them. Though we do have 10 PP for this fight, so there's almost no risk. Frank is definitely out for blood tonight. Using the second life up, this should be just about over. Frankenstein Mark II falls. Lontr0 heading into first slug fight. Lontr0 using this ideal slug spawn setup. You want to get a mouse trapped on this left spawn plate and keep on wiggling back and forth, and then when you feel some lag you can walk forward and there should usually be slugs there. You keep the mouse on the spawn plate so that another mouse doesn't spawn. Getting pretty low HP, but he decides to get out of his auto fight and just bash it out so that he can heal outside of the fight. Using a turn inside of a fight to heal can be quite slow, especially against multiple enemies. Heading up to the second floor. StaticPulse doing some burger shopping. Looks like Lontr0 was looking for the 4-pack, but he felt the lag from a 6-pack upstairs, so he decides to take this fight instead. He's trying to avoid the 2 enemies down below, but they turned out to be slugs. StaticPulse also in the ant cave, looking for slugs. Find some, but it was only 2. Grabbing the butterflies so that we're gonna have PP for Rockins against this Titanic ant coming up. Antoid's getting in the way though. I actually needed that Antoid. That's a pretty unique strategy. He was tracking his XP leading up to Titanic Ant. I presume that he took the singular Antoid there on purpose. Either that or he meant to take a double Antoid fight, because he did take one more just before he left to get the butterfly. So there's some very interesting XP management by Lontr0 here in the Ant Cave. .92 on the first Rockin'. It's a pretty solid hit against the Ant. Getting 60 on the second one, which isn't ideal, but it could miss, could not work. And if that ends up happening, you're in for a rough fight, so any damage helps. Titanic Ant not using any type of shields, which also helps a lot, getting out a lot of damage in the meantime. He's biting a little bit, but there's a big one. Lontr0 really going for the gold, and he ends up taking the Ant down with a big smash. Get on out of there. Static getting some very unfortunate despawns in some of these slug fights. You can make the XP management in this section slightly difficult. You have to take some circumstances you usually want it. Getting another 2 spawn. This might actually be intentional, but I have no idea. Sometimes the fights can be faster if you have less enemies. We end up hitting level 8. We're gonna make our way up. Indeed, the ant fight can be very scary if you've got a very magnet heavy ant. It takes too much of your PP early, you're not going to be able to get out that second rockin'. Especially if you end up in scenarios where you know, sometimes you're going to ant, you have 25 PP, sometimes you have 27. And if you end up in one of those scenarios where you have 25 and he rolls for 5 PP or more on the magnet on the first one, you know, you're in a tough spot. There's a lot that the Titanic ant can do that can really put a standstill to the fight altogether, or put you down pretty quickly. Heading into the cops on Lontr0's side. Hope that they don't get too much grief as well. Cops are just as dangerous, equally as dangerous as the Titanic ant. If you get some karate cops that are very damage heavy, you could be in for a bad time if you don't get your heals off correctly. It looks like things are going pretty smoothly so far. StaticPulse heading into Titanic ant. Uses the life up at the same time as the PSI magnet. It's very unfortunate. But if you don't attempt to use it as soon as you use your 2 Rockins, you know, you're basically gambling on it. He could take it away or he could not. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. I tend to get away with it. I would do that too. Be kind of lucky with the life up right there. Is at a very dangerous HP. The ant outspeeds, could use any move. Lontr0 exiting cops after Captain Strong. The ant falls for StaticPulse. Need some mushrooms in the way on the way to Tucson. Besides the save at the department store. end up giving Apple Kid a cookie. Which I can get down with that. I like giving Apple Kid different kinds of foods. So I usually end up giving him a hamburger. But if I can give him something else, then that always makes my run. StaticPulse withdrawing more money to get burgers before the cops. Makes those fights a little bit more secure. Indeed it does. You tell the cop no. When he asks if you could have read the sign, it is slightly faster. Lontr0 heading up and grabbing the pencil eraser trigger. Getting some enemies trying to pincer along the way, but seems to make it out okay. It took a very tight window for that trigger, so I'm always surprised to see people pulling that off because I've yet to really implement that for myself. So when I see people like taking what I would think is like, oh, I don't think he hit the trigger, but they do. Usually you'd like to have the entire pencil eraser on screen, but there is actually a visual lineup you can do where you can just walk past that line and you know that you've hit the trigger. StaticPulse making it through these cops. Making good use of all those burgers that we've saved up. Lontr0 grabbing a skip sandwich before Peaceful Rest Valley. StaticPulse decides to rock him. This cop ends up at a very dangerous 17 HP, leading him to Captain Strong. We'll have to hope that Captain Strong decides not to attack you. He ends up using his submission hold instantly. StaticPulse deciding to go back to the main menu, presumably so that he doesn't have to rebuy all of his burgers. It is a very good safety strat. Lontr0 making their way into Peaceful Rest Valley. You have a few enemies in the way, but it doesn't look like they're being too much of a hassle. Avoiding a spawn trigger there. Way south. Tries to get the butterfly, but it's in a very difficult to get to spot. I'm not sure if it could have been collected or if it was actually in a spot where it was impossible. But that is slightly annoying. Some enemies now that are trying to block off the way, but they get despawned just as easily. Decides to use the skip sandwich here to avoid these last two plants that are in the way. Yeah, that's why it's better to have that safety save. It's better to have that safety save before the cops, because if you do die, then you can go back to the main menu and you won't have to redo that buying burgers section. You'll just have the burgers for those 4 cops that were in the way before. Especially considering that a lot of the times when you do die to cops, you're gonna end up dying to Captain Strong, and you will have used up a lot of your burgers by that point. A lot of the times while you're fighting the cops, you're gonna be attempting to save most of your PP to use on Rockins. This is a very unfortunate series of events for StaticPulse. Annette is just giving the works right now. Cops are being very unkind. Captain Strong is being very unkind with his submission holds. Lontr0 taking on the Shack fight, so let's use a double rockin' to get rid of everything. Lontr0 buying 1 banana, 1 fresh egg. Decides to eat the fresh egg to save the PP for Carpenter. You also have a little bit of like backup in case this cultist coming up decides to call for help or do anything let's say hindering. Ends up calling for help instantly and bringing along another cultist, which can be very dangerous. This is what saving that rockin' is for. Getting 2 low rolls on the rockin' and another cultist joining the fight. This is very dangerous. Decides to eat the hamburger for safety. They call for help again, wrong cultist D. This is a very tight scenario. It's not what you want to see. Still have 1 more hamburger for a safety heal. They're not able to get it off, get outspeeded by both the cultists. Lontr0 takes a very unfortunate death. This is going to put us back at the department store. Back on Captain Strong and StaticPulse's side. Immediately uses submission hold again. Gets a rockin' off, does 100 damage, which is very good. Uses his submission hold again. finally end up taking him down. Captain Strong's being very, very mean, using all of his strongest attacks on repeat. The game is just not having it. Lontr0 making their way back. Peaceful Rest Valley. StaticPulse also saving the department store. Lontr0 getting some fresh eggs before making their way back into the Happy headquarters. StaticPulse is on their way to get their pencil eraser trigger. Taking on the cultists in the headquarters. Make our way into Car Painter. Have 60 HP going into Car Painter, which isn't the most ideal. But presumably, most of the time, his first attack misses. Sometimes he'll land both of his first attacks. But if he does miss, then we're gonna end up taking that damage afterwards, and it's gonna put us in a better position for later. Using the rock, and at the same time that Car Painter uses the life up. You know that he's going to use this life up because the fight's scripted, but the Rockin' ends up missing. Gets the second Rockin' off, it does 96 damage. Third Rockin' doing 70 damage. Getting a big smash, 91 HP. This deflect should kill. So it was not the most ideal Car Painter fight, but it was about as good as it could have gone. Puts us in a position now where our HP is quite high, so whenever we do this death warp coming up, it might take a few turns. Lontr0 rescuing Paula. StaticPulse getting some skip sandwiches before we head into Peaceful Rest Valley. Heading towards her death warp on Lontr0's side. While missing all of his scratches, this is not what you want to see. Taking a decent 44 chunk out of Ness. Taking out Paula with the next attack. This is a small roll, 26. Attacked itself and put itself back to normal. Does another low roll of 11, but we're defending here. End up getting taken down. Death warp successful. StaticPulse seeing a couple enemies on the way through Peaceful Rest Valley, but it's nothing that can't be handled. See a butterfly on the water. StaticPulse not getting the butterfly on this tile over here, but I do believe they have maximum PP already. Which at 30, so yeah. We got the butterflies in on that. StaticPulse getting a hat and a bat, making their way towards getting the Franklin badge. Lontr0 taking left theater entrance, which for some reason every single time that I do it doesn't work. StaticPulse starting up the shack fight. Yeah, that cultist fight in headquarters was just like as bad as it can go. I feel like that was like clear, like cookie cutter. It was just very unfortunate. StaticPulse making their way out of Shack Fight, heading back towards the Happy headquarters. Decides to eat a burger and get back to full HP. Getting 2 fresh eggs as well. Heading into this headquarters fight with this cultist. I can only hope that we don't have equally unfortunate events going on in this fight as we did in Lontr0's run. Should we make it through pretty easily? We're in the same scenario though, where our HP is quite high, and if Carpainter doesn't go the way that you want it to go, you could end up outside of the Carpainter fight with very high HP going into your Death Warp, and that can make it quite cumbersome. Yeah, 88 on this rockin'. Landing a deflect for 150, it's gonna take him down. Which is a pretty ideal fight for StaticPulse, considering we're left at well, 46 HP isn't too terrible. It's about 2 attacks from them all. Lontr0 making the way into 3 to do their graveyard section. Getting a bit unfortunate with these spawns. Those flies can be very dangerous. We take a quick despawn and make our way up to get the zombie trigger. We seem to make our way out easily enough. Some graveyards can be very dangerous and some graveyards are quite clean. There's not a whole lot of enemies. Situationally, knowing how to play accordingly in those scenarios where there are a lot of enemies and it's very dense and stuff, can really highlight the difference in skill. Lontr0 played that very well. StaticPulse heading into their Death Warp. It's acting unusual, but ended up taking out Paula before Paula could put him back to normal. Ends up resetting itself. Takes a decent chunk, 37 out of Ness. Another missed attack. Smells being very devious right now. It just doesn't wanna. He just doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. End up getting off the death warp. Taking out some money so that we can revive Paula. Lontr0 getting rid of the broken spray can to skip the text whenever you sleep before Tessie. Lontr0 making their way through Winters, gets a dog that's stuck on the hill on the way, decides not to take the fight. Decides to despawn this dog as well, so we're going, you know, no safety strats. We don't want the dog, we just want to get to Brick Road and get out. And some, you know, it's mostly up to preference. Some runners like to take the dog for safety on the first protoplasm. Some don't. Lontr0 making their way on the Tessie at the same time as this Runaway 5 show. And get your Tessies out. Lontr0 making their way towards Brick Road. take on this first protoplasm. Actually goes for the skip, does not get it. It's a very, very hard trick. Very, very difficult. Taking down the first protoplasm. Protoplasm was attacking. Quite scary. Although it's called worthless protoplasm, it tends to be quite a scary enemy for a level 1 Jeff. See about getting this duck skip. Decides not even to go for it, just wants to, you know, get through and get out. Don't want to waste time with the duck that's in a bad position at the start. End up making it through easily enough. We get a decent amount of stats from that. For the Bubble Monkey to cooperate, we end up getting this second present skip, which does help out a lot. We'll make our way onto the concave. Sees a mouse there, but doesn't get the entry that he wants. Mouse didn't get stuck. Made it quite risky, decides to do a second attempt. Ends up making it past. Getting a pretty ideal spawn here to stutter past these two enemies. It's a close encounter with those slugs right there, but ends up making it out. Gets a pretty clean second room here. StaticPulse making their way through graveyard as well. Ends up making it through, no problems. The Lontr0 getting some spawn plates that don't want to cooperate, but they come through. Other than that last room, not really wanting to cooperate at the beginning. That was a pretty solid concave. It was very, very ideal. Having some rough luck with these mushrooms at the top of this floor, but ends up making it through. Lontr0 having some slight difficulties talking to Dr. Andonuts, although that table right there, especially with him being that close to it on that corner, it can present some weird interactions. You'll end up talking to the corner of the desk there instead of talking to Dr. Andonuts. So I can understand how that would happen. Yeah, I think Dr. Andonuts just doesn't want to talk to you very much. Every single time that you talk to him, he seems to be in a hurry to go do something else or tell you to do something. And he didn't talk to his own son for 10 years. Dr. Andonuts is definitely a character. StaticPulse making their way down south through Winters. So let's despawn this crow. Although this also leaves for no dog before the first protoplasm. It looks like both runners are going to be taking the riskier route here on Brick Road. Or sometimes, you know, you don't really get a choice. StaticPulse making their way into their Tessie ride, and Lontr0 about to come up on the Boogey tent fight, decides to grab the teddy bear before the fight. There's Tessie. There's a dog right there just south of the tent that ends up being easily avoidable. It might have been stuck on the tree there. Not really sure. Decides to save on the rock and only uses the BBR. Ends up rolling for just under 500, which is a very good amount of damage. Using another rocket, backup bottle rocket ends up taking the tent down. And even with the, you know, there's a lot of unfortunate circumstances that happen in these runs for both runners. You know, there were some fights that were, you know, much less than ideal, and some fights, you know, that Lontr0 said himself was literally impossible. And, you know, we're looking at a very, very solid time coming out of Lontr0 as sub 110. StaticPulse really not being that far behind. Overall, the performance has been very, very good. Earthbound is, you know, it can be a very, very punishing game. Lontr0 ending with a 109.53. Very, very solid time. StaticPulse trying to make their way through the protoplasm fight. Protoplasm called for help, which can make it the fight, you know, a lot slower, but it can also be dangerous. You know, those protoplasms can hit Jeff for a lot, especially whenever he's low level and he doesn't have much HP. Ends up getting the YOLO duck skip. Takes down the second protoplasm. We'll make our way into the concave. Attempts to go for a stutter right there. Though I didn't even see the third enemy. Seemed to come out of nowhere. That can present a lot of lag and it can make stutters a lot more difficult. Making it past the second room. StaticPulse grabbing the backup bottle rocket, making their way out of the pond cave. Other than that one fight with the two slugs, that wasn't too terrible of a pond cave. Yeah. A lot of enemies there can just stay there and just never despawn, and you can get caught up in a lot of those really tight sections that can make it quite difficult. That's right, we still have another race going on tonight. Rain versus Octopus Scout. Stay tuned, we still have a lot of Earthbound going on. StaticPulse finishing up the Skyrunner sequence. Gonna be making the way to buy a Boogey tent pretty soon. Grabbing the teddy bear for safety. Decided to eat a skip sandwich for this last little bit. Just to make it into the tent a little bit faster, and you know, if there's any zombie dogs or anything like that in the way, then you can avoid them. Pulls out the BBR. Does a whopping 596 damage. It's going to take down the Boogey tent in one hit. That's going to be a good game for StaticPulse. Honestly, for the amount of bad stuff that happened, you know, it was throwing left, right, and center at StaticPulse with the luck element in this run, and I can say that I've had runs that didn't have as many bad things happen in the run that were much slower than what StaticPulse has gotten. So I have to commend you. This is like a very, very good run for the amount of bad stuff that happened from StaticPulse. Overall, the performance from both the runners for the amount of bad luck in these two runs has really showcased a lot of the skill. Good game to both the runners.